To DLA Night. Today I've got David Fradin, and we're going to be talking about product success, the 5 keys to product success. Um, David, I never do bios because I find them boring. Where can people find you?
Probably the best place is my website, which is Spice Catalyst, one word, .com.
And not on the beach behind you.
Well, I wish you could find me there, but that's the pleasures of green screen technology.
Yes. So you've worked for some amazing companies, haven't you? Hewlett-Packard, Apple, Cisco. I mean, what a pedigree.
Yeah, well, somebody has to do it.
And so in that you worked in product management, didn't you?
Correct. Yeah, I started at HP in corporate PR, and at the time was the only department of the company that knew how to type. So I introduced word processing throughout the department, and it turned out those skill sets were also applicable to the field of product management, or as I prefer to call it, product success management.
Mm.
So one of the nice things about HP is I could move laterally over into product management. And then Apple later recruited me because I was a trained HP product manager, which was ground zero for the field.
Mm.
And then they noticed that I knew how to manage, so they asked me to take over the Apple III product line, which is one of the two profitable product lines at the time, before Steve Jobs had introduced his Macintosh.
Right.
And then after Steve convinced the board to cancel the Apple III product line, and then later tried to convince the board to cancel the Apple II product line, which in essence would have been to cancel the company entirely, since those are the only two product lines that were making money. They asked me after I proposed giving the full authority to the product manager, commensurate with the full responsibility for the product line. And they agreed with that. They set me up as an independent business unit. But instead of giving me the title of general manager, they gave me the title of business unit manager, or BUM for short. And we sold 25,000, one third of the 75,000 Apple IIIs that were ever sold. Generated enough money to keep about 1,000 to 1,500 Apple employees employed, and created enough money to help fund the development of the Macintosh, unbeknownst to Steve Jobs at the time. So then we did one of the first end of life cycles for a product line coming out of Silicon Valley, and did it in such ways to protect the customers of the Apple III
Right.
and their loyalty to Apple for years thereafter.
Mm. And I know for some people watching, it may seem like a long time ago, but actually it wasn't that long ago. And in effect, what a lot of people were doing at the beginning of the time of Silicon Valley, you were creating things from scratch.
Right.
It was new. No one had done it before.
Yeah, we had guidance from people like Jeffrey, I forget his last name offhand, that wrote a book called Crossing the Chasm.
Oh, Jeffrey Moore.
Jeffrey Moore, yeah.
Yes.
And I had the privilege of attending Apple University, and he was one of the instructors there. But there wasn't really much in the whole Crossing the Chasm that made any sense. Uh, the issue at that time was that only 4% of all the people in America had a personal computer.
Yeah.
And the feeling was, I mean, how, was the market that all? Was that the entire market? Were we saturated or not saturated? It was not an issue of whether there was a chasm or not. It was an issue of adoption of the technology and a recognition amongst the masses that it's a useful tool to have. And now it's even to the point where my sister has one and calls me every 15 minutes because she has another technical problem.
Yeah, I'm the IT help desk for my parents as well. But they've got PCs, and I moved to Mac. Oh, oh, 15 years ago, and so it's the first thing I always ask people if they're having technical problems. Do you have a PC?
Yeah, I went back to Mac about 15 years ago myself after IBM did a study saying that Macs take 20% less support than Windows machines.
Mm.
I always get confused by Windows because if you want to stop a Windows machine, you have to press on start. I don't know if we've ever changed that. And that's when, as I teach branding, branding is the promise of the product or the promise of the company. And the tagline for the company should generally support that branding messaging. So I've always suggested that Microsoft changes their tagline to helping more people feel more stupid than any other company in the world.
So, so what's the difference between a product and a service?
A product is tangible; you can touch it.
Right.
A service is intangible. Something like iCloud or Dropbox or Google Drive or Google Docs are services. Uh, Another partial differentiator is services tend to be sold on a subscription basis,
Mm.
monthly or annual, and products tend to be sold as a one time purchase. And about 5, 10 years ago, Wall Street got enthralled with the notion of services and hence drove the stock price of things like Google and Facebook and Twitter and others. And recently, there have been efforts, and Apple's been one of them, to let you, for example, now you can subscribe to your iPhone for 20 or 30 bucks a month, and each year you automatically get a new iPhone, along with getting Apple service or Apple Care, Apple support.
Mm.
So those that movement towards services and shifting of products to doing subscription like a service, but still a service is an intangible product. A product is something tangible that you can touch, and both of them need to be treated the same way in terms of the five keys of product success.
Mm. So we're here to talk about the five keys of product success. So, David, let's walk through those five keys.
Sounds good. The It starts with the mnemonic SPICE, hence the name of my company, Spice Catalyst. The S stands for a product market strategy, of which there's about 32 elements. The E stands for process, or repeatable process.
Yeah.
The I stands for having the information necessary to make the decision.
Yes.
One of the most important components is the C in SPICE, to understand your customer. What is it that your customer wants to do? Why do they do it? When do they do it? Where do they do it? How do they do it? How important is it that they do it that way? And how satisfied are they with other solutions to that same particular problem? And the last is the employees, and making sure that they have the 130 competencies necessary for product success.
Mm. So, John, walk us through. Give us some detail about each of those one in just a little bit of detail
Yeah,
in 12 minutes.
the core of the product market strategy is first understanding the customer, which is the C, as I mentioned a moment ago, and then doing your competitive research and your market research and identify the personas of the individuals or the companies you want to attack with your product. You put all that together, and you then can develop a product positioning statement, a position in the mind of your prospective customer. Then, with that in mind, you can put together and identify your market, your target market, your total available market. How are you going to reach that market? That is your sales and distribution strategy, your pricing strategy, your training and support plans. Those are the major key components of a product market strategy. The process is when you go through that to be able to replicate that process over and over again.
Mm.
I had a client a few years ago that contracted with me as a consultant to help him figure out his process. And they had introduced 5 products in the previous couple of years. And I asked him, did they have a process that they followed? And they said no. And he says the lack of a process usually develops a culture of blame in the organization where everyone points fingers at everybody else. So, process in a mature process, as they teach us in MBA school, is very important. I, as having the information available to make a decision, I was doing a consulting project for a client, and they were in the services. This division was in the services business, doing about $4 billion a year. The company itself was significantly larger than that, and they had a market research department that subscribed to about 80 market research services, and none of them, only four of them, had services market research as add-ons to their
Right.
annual subscriptions. So I called the market research department. It was like in August of that year. I said, "Could you subscribe for me and for the services division generating $44 billion a year in revenue? Can you subscribe to these four services?" And they said, "No, we have to put it in our budget, and the budget will be reviewed in January, and then we go into our new budget year in September of next year," which is like a year and a month after I gave them that phone call. I said, "This is only a 6-month project, and you're asking me to make recommendations on how this company could compete with Huawei in China and with Wipro in India,
Yeah.
based on no information from anywhere other than what I can gather in my own interviews and surveys." And they said, "Sorry, that's the best we can do." So here you got a $4 billion division trying to get into what, a third of the world's market in terms of people, China and India, flying blind. So you got to give the people that need this information the information that they need
Mm.
when they need it.
Mm.
The C stands for the customer, and that is again understanding what it is that your customer wants to do, and keeping in mind that things that people do are no different today than they were maybe 10,000 years ago. For example, um, when the caveman wanted to communicate, or woman, they grabbed a piece of burnt wood called charcoal and they scrawled on the walls of their cave. Then they noticed it's kind of hard to carry their cave to the next cave to show their writings and their pictures. So they chipped off pieces of block, and that was slate, and they carried the slate. And they found that that was pretty heavy. And eventually, over thousands of years, they developed paper. But in between, they noticed that their hands are getting filthy from the charcoal. So they wrapped it with wood and they called that a pencil.
Yeah.
And they noticed that the pencil kept wearing down. So they invented, or they stole a few feathers and made some ink. And then they noticed they had to constantly dip for ink. So the ballpoint pen was invented. And eventually, word process or typewriters, mechanical,
Yeah.
electric, then word processing, and then word processing on the personal computer. And all of that effort was doing exactly the same thing. The difference is that they were doing exactly what they wanted to do, when they wanted to do it, where they wanted to do it, but they were not satisfied with the dirty hands, or with the pencil wearing down, or the typewriter that you have to retype the same thing over and over again. And that all eventually led to the word processor and the ability to copy, cut, and paste. So each of those changes is called innovation these days, which is like French entrepreneur is actually French for product manager. And uh, people come along and they innovate on these different things. And innovation is nothing more than doing something better, faster, quicker, or like in the case of the Apple Watch, with style, in order
Yeah.
to be able to tell what time it is with style, and brandish your watch around to show how stylish you are. And then E is the employees' skill sets. Each of the things that I mentioned before require specialized understanding and training. Most product success managers learn on the job, and it takes them a year or two or three before they become truly effective. Others take my courses, which are available online. And you get that information through my website, spicecatalyst.com. Or companies have contracted with me, like Cisco and Capital One Bank and the Botswanian Telecommunications Company and the country of Singapore, to deliver the courses in person.
Mm. And so if I'm an entrepreneur and I have an idea for a product, where do I start? What is the place where I need to start? Because I think what most people do is immediately build, go to some sort of minimal viable product.
Yeah,
And should we be doing that, or what should we be doing?
number one thing is to first write your product market strategy.
Right.
And that will take 3 to 6 people months worth of time.
Right.
A lot of people say they don't have time to do that, or they don't have the money to do that, and they might as well just take all the money that they raised or all of their own money and just throw it in the fireplace. And if you don't believe me, just contact any one of the 7,000 startups in 2015 in India, when India all of a sudden caught a fever of doing startups and entrepreneurship and angel investing and venture capital. And just about all 7,000 of those companies have gone out of business, all because they're going to develop, and as some people here in Silicon Valley call it, the ability to act fast and fail quickly, and then try again. It's sort of like ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, the companies go out of business. And then I just, with regard to this minimum viable product, Apple never puts out a minimum viable product and then sells these experiments to their customers. They wait sometimes until after, so that they're not necessarily the first company
Yeah.
in the market, until they have a robust, fully functional, fully usable product. I'll give you an example of that. There was a little company called Roost that came out about 10 years ago with a 10 or what is it, a 9-volt battery with a little cap on it, which had a Wi-Fi sender and a microphone. So if the fire alarm went on, it automatically sent you a text message and notified the fire department that your house is on fire. And I lived in a condominium complex around that time, and I left and gone to Maui, which is what you see behind me at my vacation rental. And one of the condos went up in flames and cost two or $300,000 worth of fire damage. If they had one of these little Roost products for about $10, the fire department could have been warned earlier, and the fire department was only about 3 blocks away. Might have saved tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Mhm.
Well, that company decided just last year to no longer manufacture their batteries, and went on and shifted their market focus and left people like me high and dry with these uh, with this Roost product. So that was a case where they hadn't figured out, they figured out what their minimum viable product was, but they hadn't figured out a product line in order to sustain themselves in the marketplace. And they made the decision of, instead of doing B2C, business to consumer, they were going to focus all their efforts on B2B, business to business.
Right.
Uh, Now, if I had a business, I would never buy a product from Roost either, because who knows if they're going to provide any loyalty back compared to the last time in which they did not. So there was an article in, I think it was in Medium a week or so ago, from a lady that worked in product design at Apple for a year. She's now over at Google doing product design. And she points that out. That point that I just made is, it's not sufficient to put out a minimum viable product and fail fast, as Facebook talks about. Facebook's failing fast failed so fast it helped destroy the U.S. elections in 2016. So no, put out a fully robust product that meets exactly what it is that your customer wants to do.
And that's about sitting down and in effect working through your um, strategy, process, information, customer, and employee strategy that you put forward.
Correct. And starting with what it is that your customer wants to do. And first, what you do is you go out like a social anthropologist and you observe what people do. For example, Henry Ford made the mistake to go out and interview people, and he would ask them, "Would you like to have a car?" And nobody had ever heard of a car before, so he said, "No, I don't want a car. I just want a faster horse."
Yeah.
Well, if he had bothered to grab a beer and sit on the stoop of a saloon in Dearborn, Michigan, which is not far from where I grew up, and he would have noticed people hitting their horses with sticks, trying to get them to go faster. So, and then of course, if he had the internet back then, and he asked the internet, what is it that people want or need, and he did a Google search to see how many people were searching for the keyword car, or the keyword automobile or auto, he would have gotten zero back because no one was searching for a car, automobile, and therefore he would have concluded from this wisdom of the crowds that there was no market for cars, automobiles, and so forth, and therefore all of this traffic we see on the streets and cars parked in parking lots are simply mirages. But if you'd gone out first to observe, then to interview, and then to survey a cross section that's representative of his target market, that's how you figure out if there's a market there and if there's some things that people want to do that you can provide such that they will want the product. And the second problem of asking people what they want is that they have to first understand that they have a problem, and most people don't. And then they have to come up with a solution and call in a car and know when to call. And then when they say, well, what do you want? Then you can say, I want a car.
David, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this. Remind people where they can get hold of you.
Again, it's www.spicecatalyst.com.
And I've been to your website, and you have all of your stuff on there, and the courses and all the any further information that people want from today.
That's correct.
David, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing your wisdom and your experience and your photograph of the beach.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.